Well, hi everyone, and a happy Easter to all of you. Well, all 12 of you who are probably watching this and taking the time because you're bored like the rest of Australia at the moment. Welcome to our little patch of paradise. We've got 2 acres in the Gold Coast hinterland as a pretend farmer. These are not pretend horses, these are real horses. This is Reuben, the big fella here, and this is Manolo, who is a horse I used to race in a syndicate many years ago, but we've given him a nice retirement. Manolo Blanix is his name. He's about 16. Reuben, the big guy who still gets ridden by my daughter, he's about 12 years old. So we moved up from Sydney 10 years ago, actually, to this little patch of turf in the Gold Coast hinterland, brought our kids up, brought the horses up as well, to really get out of the rat race and, I guess, the strangulation of the big city in the end. It felt like it was just crushing us. So we moved up here partly to get closer to nature, and that has been something we have definitely never regretted, especially in these times of lockdowns and isolation. Coming out here every day, even if it's just to pick up horse poo or to feed the horses or just to sit with them as they eat. They don't know anything about this virus. They are just such beautiful critters to be around, give off a really lovely energy, and I guess give us all time to think about what's going on in the world right now, which we're all doing, be it in an apartment in Sydney or Melbourne, on a property out the west of Queensland, or here just on the edge of the Gold Coast hinterland in this semi sort of rural area that we live in. I guess part of the message I think that is most important about this pandemic is our connection with nature, our connections with each other and our connection with nature as well, because like many people, I do feel in many ways that the planet is trying to tell us something right now, and that is that we have to respect the environment that we live in wherever we are. We have to respect the animals that in many cases provide us food and that we enjoy in the wild as well. We have been taking all of this stuff for granted for far too long. Pardon me for getting on my high horse here, and excuse the very bad pun too. But I do think we've been taking this connection with nature for granted for far too long, and that if we don't use this pause that we've had, this pause on everything, whether you're in Iceland, in New York, in London, here in Australia, in Mongolia, we are all being impacted by this virus, and we are all stopping as one, and we have to think about the kind of world that we want to return to. I think the worst outcome of all of this is if in 8, 10, 12 weeks time, the footy's back on TV, our businesses open up again, kids go back to school, universities, whatever, and we just ignore the lessons that we're being taught. I really think it is so important that we take on board this time, this quiet time that we've got to enjoy our families, to appreciate the simple things in life, the simple things like feeding these horses. This is my favorite part of the day. I absolutely love coming out here and just sitting with them. And this was long before the virus came along as well. This point in time for us as a species, sharing this planet as we do, we have to drop our arrogance. We have to be less ignorant of everything that we have taken for granted to this point, and have some respect. We are so very lucky also, I think, in Australia to have this amazing health system that we've created over many years, to have so many resourceful, innovative and remarkable people who are working in our health system at the front line of this terrible crisis. And we've seen, I think, with the very low mortality rate, the low number of deaths compared to other countries, with the way that we have, generally speaking, adhered to all the rules and the regulations that have applied to us. So I think overall, we can come out of this pandemic in pretty good shape as a country. But that isn't to diminish in any way the impact that this awful coronavirus has had on individuals and their families, because way more than just statistics, these are stories of grandmothers, grandfathers, mums, dads, young people in some cases as well, who have lost their lives to coronavirus, and others who have watched their families endure many days and even weeks on end in hospitals and in ICU to, in those cases, fortunately, get them back. So our hearts go out to all of those people who have been directly impacted. It raises another point as well, I think, about the way we treat science, scientists and research as well in this country, because we've been warned about not necessarily this pandemic, but something like it for many years. So we have to be prepared as a country to invest in the long term in people who know about this stuff, people who work at the coalface of this. Great researchers, world-class researchers. We need to keep them here and to keep them funded on these long-term projects and not expect returns back in 3 or 6 months' time, but let them have the money and the resources that they need to address these problems so we don't, in our lifetime, have something like this happen to us again. And as we do stop and think about so many things, what I really have enjoyed about the past few weeks, even though these are very uncertain times, has been reconnecting with my family. Our son had just started at Australian National University in Canberra, so he tearily for us, that his mum and dad, had gone off and set up his new life down there. And just a couple of months later, he's back with us, living with us once again, and having to deal with all of that. And he's done a really good job of that. So we have our daughter and our son back under our roof, but has been something we've thoroughly enjoyed. And I think a lot of people around the country whose mums and dads are maybe working at home now, as difficult as it might be, it has really taught us to appreciate our families. And for me too, I just want to send out a big sound out and a big hello to everyone, the hundreds and hundreds of wonderful people, from camera operators to production managers to auto cue people to associate producers, directors, you name it, in this, I guess, flawed but fantastic television industry that I've now been a part of for 41 years. It has been really not like real work, a lot of it. It's a lot of fun. We get to work with incredibly creative, just gorgeous people who are really hurting right now, like so many around the country in so many industries, like the aviation industry as well. But TV freelancers in particular are doing it very tough. They don't necessarily have the superannuation to fall back on as well that others might have. They've fallen between the gaps in a lot of cases. So my heart goes out to all of you. I have had such joy and pleasure working on so many different programs, like It's Academic, like $1 Million Minute, and of course Sunrise and Weekend Sunrise as well in more recent times, Good Medicine on Channel 9. My heart goes out to all of you, and I hope that you are doing okay at this very, very tough time indeed. I guess I'd also like to say the man who's, yes, I'm talking to you, the man who is behind Isolation TV, and that's the wonderful John Olb. Well, John and I met first, I think, working on a program called Beyond 2000, a science show, many, many moons ago, when I wasn't quite so grey and I had more hair as well, and youth was on my side back then. Oh, I thought I was going to live forever. But I think that show taught us to think about the world in a big way, in a big picture way. I reckon in the decades since Beyond finished, which was sort of early to mid 90s, that we've retracted a little bit. We've become a little bit more focused on our backyards, on our kitchens, on our cooking. That's all well and good, but I really think, again, coming back to that point, that we have to think about the kind of world that we want to create, the kind of world, the big picture stuff that we want to be a part of in the future. I think that is a really, really important lesson to take away from what we're being taught right now. So, excuse me getting on my soapbox, everybody, about nature, but from Manolo over here, enjoying his afternoon hay, and from Ruben here, say farewell, fellas. Thanks for listening to this rant and this rave, everybody, and please do take care of yourselves and your family. Get outside wherever you are, even if you're in the city. Look up at the sky, look up at the moon tonight. Have a happy Easter and stay safe and healthy. And thanks for listening to this old bugger. Bye.